I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
You prepare for a golf tournament?
Well, I hit balls maybe 20 minutes, putt a little bit, smoke 4 or 5 cigarettes, drink 3 Diet Cokes, and go to the first tee. Some days I won't even go to the range.
That's right. We welcome you in. It's Monday, December 30th. It's the Daily Puck Drop. Jason Puckett, the go-to guy, Jim Moore, inside the Limback Lumber Studios. There's a method of the madness why we played the John Daly clip for this week. I know the go-to guy knows, but we'll update everybody why we played it this week. Again, Limback Lumber Studios. You find Puck Sports. We do it every single day, Monday through Friday, except the last 2 weeks because it's abbreviated. It's the holidays. So this will be our last show. My last show before 2025. We'll be back on Thursday and Friday, taking Tuesday, Wednesday off because of New Year's Eve and New Year's. All right. Limback Lumber Studios contractors, they got free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects. Largest stock moldings in the Northwest. They've got old school service. They've been doing it since 1930. Give them a call, 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbacklumber.com. Jim's with us on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays until he decides I don't want to do it anymore. And it's all brought to you by...
No, I keep wondering when you're going to say, do you not want to do it anymore, Jim? I mean,
well, I'm waiting for you to say I'm done. Because I get this question a lot. Where does Jim go? Why doesn't he stay on the whole time? Why doesn't he do this? And I go, because he doesn't want to.
See, I've got this fear, though. It's because I've been fired twice, and, maybe third time's a charm with you. You're going to fire me at some point,
Why would I fire you? I've got no reason to fire you.
Well, I don't know. Shit, maybe I'm slowing down because I'm getting older and all that shit, so. Oh, I got to quit swearing, though, don't I?
Well,
Yeah, I got to quit swearing.
I just don't like it. You know what? I've listened back to some of the shows and watched some of the shows, and I'm like, it doesn't really add anything. And I think it's the years of broadcasting, of doing radio and all that. I'm like, I think when it's appropriate, it's okay. But we just loosely throw it out there. It doesn't make sense. All right. Clean Streak. Talk to me.
Yeah, cleanstreak.com, Puck, professional window and exterior cleaning services, proudly serving Island and Skagit County for more than 10 years. And I have a feeling that Brian Turner, he would probably go to Pierce County, King County. He wants to please you. It's 100% satisfaction guaranteed at a Clean Streak, whether you need your roof cleaned or the gutters or jammed with leaves and dirt, they'll clean those too. And pressure washing, the dirty job. Let the professionals do it from a Clean Streak. Give them a call at 360-395-5748 or visit acleanstreak.com.
That's all you got to do. Now, you know why. Thank you to Brian and to Clean Streak. And, of course, he's got the Christmas lights business as well. Bright Owl Lighting. Go check those guys out. We've kept the lights up. I'm going to send a note to Brian. Brian, if you're watching or listening right now, I'll send you a note as well. We'd like to keep it up longer. We enjoy it. In fact, I may keep it up all year. I like the lights that much.
Well, when is it okay?
Brightens up the house.
Is it okay to leave them up till January 10th maybe?
I don't know. Can you leave? What's the protocol on leaving it up all year?
I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it. I like Christmas lights.
Who doesn't like Christmas lights? You have to be a real a-hole if you don't like Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to like Christmas
lights. You just swore. You said you weren't going to swear.
A-hole. That's not swearing.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
That's short for asshole. Everybody knows that.
You just swore. A-hole is not
A-hole
swearing.
A-hole is the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
It is not. It is not the same thing.
Yeah. Hey, can everyone see my nostrils okay, do you think, today?
Everyone does enjoy that you still have the camera that shoots up right up your nostrils.
So I'm trying to fix it so the camera's at a better angle and then I couldn't hear you anymore.
Don't touch it because you're going to screw it up again. Yeah. All right. I don't think a-hole's the same as asshole, but that's just me. I disagree with them. Okay.
You're wrong. That's okay.
Well, I'm not saying the swear part of it. I'm not saying the swear word when I say a-hole.
You're intimating it. You're basically saying it.
Okay, so is F-U the same as saying it? The F word?
No, but you have a point there.
Oh, winner.
Mother bleeper, does that work?
Mother bleeper's not swearing.
Yeah, but everyone knows what you're bleeping.
Okay.
I'm going to try to stop swearing, though, because I think you're right. I mean, just, saying the F word and S-H-I-T. I mean, you don't need to say that
You just
stuff,
spelled
'cause
it out.
We never
That would
said
be
it at
worse.
KJR, and I never said it at 710. One time I slipped up and said shit. Just one time, though.
That's twice now you've swore.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I know you're a little out of sorts, though, because you're worried about Sam Howell starting on Saturday.
I'm not worried about Sam Howell starting. And if you had some cojones, you would double the bet. You'd double the bet. I'll double or nothing right now that he doesn't start. He doesn't start on Sunday. I don't know why would just let him start. Have you seen, by the way, real quickly? Let me just set up the show. What's happening today? Because we have an abbreviated show because no shows Tuesday and Wednesday. God, I haven't talked to Rob State and it feels like forever. No Canzano tomorrow. Canzano's coming on in about 10 minutes from now with us. It's the first time you probably talked to Canzano. I know you've been on the show, but it's been a while that the three of us have sat down together. So Canzano's coming up in about 15 minutes or so, less than that. We're going to talk Jake Dickert. We're going to talk Jimmy Rogers. We're going to talk CFP, all that kind of stuff. Cam Ward quitting at halftime, all of it. Can't wait. As Canzano will join us. And then there we go.
River.
Just, no problem. Yeah, just let your dogs. Perfect. Maybe you want to, Kathy, you want to do something about the dogs? We've got Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree. They're coming by at 11 o'clock for the Ground Puck Podcast. And then 11:30 we'll do Hey, What the Puck. Final show of 2024. So we'll get covered on that. I lost my track. I lost my train of thought. Where were we going with Canzano? No, the Sam Howell thing. Yeah. Have you seen his escalator clauses?
I did see those clauses.
Oh,
he's already met one. If I'm him, I want to sit out because he's already met one of them.
Let's see. I'm just reading because it was Brady Henderson. Brady had it. So the Seahawks can't get in the playoffs, but the regular season finale against the Rams won't be completely meaningless. For one thing, Geno Smith's going to have $6 million worth of contract escalators on the line. He's got 3 escalators worth $2 million apiece are within reach. These escalators would be tacked on to Smith's March roster bonus. He'd be in line to get an extra $2 million for getting a 10th win. So he gets $2 million if they win. $2 million more for reaching 4,282 yards. Needs 185. And with Grub's going to throw it 90 times on Sunday. And then an extra $2 million for finishing at 69.75555 completion rate percentage or higher. He's currently at 70.2. $6 million on the line for Geno Smith. If I'm the Seahawks, just an FU to him, I'd sit him.
No, you wouldn't. They can't do that.
Oh, they're not going to sit him.
How bad would that be if they did that? I know that teams do that all the time, but that wouldn't be cool. I want him to start Sam Howell so I can win $250 from you, but I just wouldn't feel right about that.
Can you imagine if they did? Can you just imagine if they said, you know what, we'd like to give Sam Howell a shot? Or let like he gets to 180 yards, right? The game's over. The Rams, I don't know, the incentive for the Rams is none to play anybody. They shouldn't play anyone. They should bench everyone. They shouldn't play a single starter at all. And let's say he gets to 180 and they're up big. Let's give Howell a shot in the second half. And he's 5 yards away from getting that.
See, I'd rather see that. I'm okay with the $2 million for the 10th win.
Yeah.
But if he's got $6 million in incentives, I think it should be $6 million for the 10th win. I don't like the passing yards because that encourages a quarterback to, audible at the line probably. Like, oh God, they got a running play again. Well, shit, I got to think about my incentive here.
Are you saying he's been doing that, Jim?
No, I'm not, but subconsciously maybe. And then if I'm him, I'm sitting out this game. If they want to sit me out, I'm going, well, okay, just hand me the $2 million because I'm at 70%. There's a chance in this game that he would just check down and throw short passes to make sure that he keeps his completion percentage up and not, launch it to DK into double coverage or something.
Well, it will be. It's now we've got several weeks here to sit there and analyze the 2024 Seattle Seahawks season. What went wrong and what went right? You know, I look back at it and let's say they win Sunday, right? They should win on Sunday. This is like what I expected them to be. I expected them to be 10-7. I did. So it's like I know there's a lot of hand wringing going on with people, but they were an average football team. They were okay. And at times they looked really good, and at times they looked really bad. And obviously they're going to go back and look at the Giants game. Giants game's going to be, and I know there's several other games that people are going to point to, but the Giants game will be the number one game. But if they beat the Rams, and maybe there's an asterisk because the Rams don't play anyone, but I don't know. Their win total was 7.5.
Well,
that was Vegas. Vegas thought they
no, I know we use Vegas as the barometer of everything.
Of course.
And if Vegas thought the Seahawks were supposed to be 7.5 over under win total, they've exceeded that by 2 already and might exceed it by 3.
Yeah. So it's a successful season. Although, God, it seemed like every game somebody was complaining about something. Wow.
First year for the coach, first year for the offensive coordinator who had never even been in the NFL. You had a crummy offensive line that you were trying to work around. Right. I mean, they should have been on paper if you looked at them, especially the defense early in the year. The defense clearly got better after a while, but I mean that could have been a 6-11 team.
So do you think, regardless, I'm going to ask this question, and people can leave. You can always comment in the comment section, whether you're streaming this or watching it live on YouTube or on X, doesn't matter. I'll throw this out there. Do you think, regardless what happens, successful season? Yes? Win or lose?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. First year, what, did you expect a Super Bowl? I mean,
some did.
I mean, don't you feel pretty good about Mike Macdonald and what he's brought to the team? I do.
I feel better about Mike Macdonald and where they're going than I do. I feel worse off, I guess. I just feel better the direction they're going. And I thought that they would have their bumps and bruises and their ups and downs, and they did.
And then maybe this is oversimplifying it, but don't you think Ryan Grubb would have been a better play caller if he had better players out there blocking? I mean,
well, that's going to be the biggest offseason, right? Can they fix that? They haven't been able to fix the offensive line. He hasn't fixed it in a decade. Because I was just seeing some comments on social media from Rob Staten, of course, who joins me every week, and we had spent a couple of weeks just because of vacations and Rob and all that, so he'll be back on next week. And Rob is like, hey, I think he was intimating this was not a successful year. This was a bad year, and that there needs to be more changes. And people are like, well, what more changes do you want them to do? They made a coaching change. I think what he's not saying it, but he wants to say it, and maybe he will say it, is that he wants to. I'm going to put words in his mouth, but he seems to be suggesting to get rid of John Schneider. So I'm just, I disagree with Rob, and when he's on next week, we'll certainly discuss it because now we'll put the season in a rearview mirror. But I just, I'd have to go back and maybe listen to the first show of the year. But what was the expectation? Playoffs, record, what was it? And I thought right where they were at was 10-7. And maybe that would be good enough to sneak in, and it was almost good enough to get in, but they just missed out.
Puck, we've talked about it, though. It's false hope that they built with that 3-0 start, though. And then even at the time we talked about it, sorry, I'm distracted here.
It's okay.
Even at the time, we were thinking, okay, wait a minute. You're facing Bo Nix, who turned out to be a pretty damn good quarterback.
Sure did.
Yeah, but at the time he was just like you knew he was under wraps, and so you beat you caught Denver at a great time. You faced Miami without Tua, and then New England. Look how bad New England is. Wow. So 3-0 start. You started thinking, and then San Francisco being down with their injuries. Okay, the division was there for the taking. They were in first place, so I understand the disappointment because you had it there, and the division wasn't all that great. The Rams were off to a 1-4 start. But still, overall, if you did the big picture, like everybody always says, the view from 30,000 feet.
What would you say to someone who's never seen football before? What would you tell them about the season?
Okay, fire Schneider at some point, I suppose, because everybody in that position gets fired at some point, but I don't think this is the point to do it.
Not going to do it after 1 year. That ownership group made their choice of who they were moving forward with. Because let's understand it was a choice what ownership did. They decided to move forward with John Schneider and not Pete Carroll. They're not going to turf it after a year. They're not going to do that.
No, nor should they.
Give it again. 10 and 7.
The Mariners should have gotten rid of DePoto. I think everybody agrees with that, but I don't think we're sitting here thinking, boy, it's time for John Schneider to go. Are we? I know there's some people out there. There's probably a bunch of people thinking Ryan Grubb should be fired tomorrow.
It's probably a lot of people that. Well, I think there's. I don't agree with it, but I do think that it's on the table that is over. I really, really do. I mean, it was something last week we talked to Garofolo about. Garofolo said he thinks it's on the table, that it's a one and done for him. I would be surprised, but I
throw a lot of crazy things out there on Twitter, and I say a lot of stupid stuff.
You wanted Rick Neuheisel as the head coach, and you wanted Pete Callaghan. Boy, that Pete Callaghan, he was so loyal to the soil, wasn't he?
Thank you he went to Wake Forest.
Where did he go? Where did I tell you he was going to go the second the season was over?
I know. I wanted to believe that he still loves those kids of ours.
I know he does, and I'm glad that he stayed back to coach them. But the second Jake Dickert took that job, Pete Callaghan was going there too.
Okay, fine. Thank you for bringing up examples of stupid stuff that I said.
No, you've got great stuff. You've got great stuff.
I just was generalizing, and just saying that I'm prone to saying stupid stuff, but
we all are.
I think that wanting Ryan Grubb fired at this point, did he not have his best season? I suppose. Did we really expect him to have a season like he had at Washington, right out of the gate? Did we? I mean, he didn't have Penix and that great offensive line.
I thought it would be better. I'll be honest. I thought it would be better. I don't think it was horrible. I thought it would be better.
Well, let's say he was better than what? They would have been 12-5? You think that team could have been 12-5? I think taken aback of just, again, how much, but we shouldn't have been, about how bad they were just up front on the offensive line, because that was going to be the storyline going into the season. Then it was terrible. It was terrible again, and it took them a while, and they had glimpses where they were good, and then the Walker stuff just never, he never could quite get going and healthy and all that, and it just, that was another
running
dumb
game was
thing.
never a problem.
That was another dumb thing I proposed. Remember that? Charbonnet might be a better back than Walker for the offense. That never got traction, as they said.
That didn't. Yeah, you were kind of on a lone island on that one. All right. So we have that. Quickly, Canzano is waiting by. I want to get to Canzano just a quick second. Our first edition of Dynamic Duos is out, by the way. And after John, I'm going to play a clip for it. But Dynamic Duos for all Puck's Posse members is available right now. Our first Dynamic Duos, hour-long conversation with Groz and Gas, two heavyweights, iconic sports radio talk show hosts. The Dynamic Duos is something we started back during COVID. It was even before Jim joined the show. We had nothing to talk about, so I came up with an idea of we'll just interview two people that are synonymous with one another in Seattle sports. The first group was Kevin Calabro and Marcus Johnson. Then it grew from there. Steve Largent, Jim Zorn, Gary Payton, Sean Kemp. You get the picture. And so I thought, we'll bring it back to Puck Sports and this new venture. And the first people that we have on, first two people I thought of was Groz and Gas. So it's available right now if you can listen to it, if you are a member. So sign up today, be a Puck's Posse member. The QR code on your screen will take you there. Another easy way is just to go to pucksports.com. But it was fun. Yeah, it was fun catching up with those guys a couple weeks ago. God,
everybody loves Groz and Gas. I mean, that was the show. You tuned into that show. You wanted to hear what those guys had to say about everything, and they were, both of them were always so good to me, and I felt honored to be able to work with Groz over at 710 for a while. Yep. So just so much fun. So I'm looking forward to hearing that.
He worked with everybody. All right. Hey, it's been a while since the three of us have been able to do a show together. Look at him. He looks rested and ready to go. as he's ready to get into the 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, from Portland, Oregon, John Canzano, johncanzano.com. Weekly appearance brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. We're off tomorrow, Wednesday, so we said, hey, John, why don't you come on today? Because it's been a few weeks since we've talked to you, and then you're going to see Jim. Look at him.
I know.
He hasn't changed, John.
I know. He looks the same. I like to go to his house in Central Oregon and fix his camera angle a little bit. Get it, camera angle up. I want to see your eyes.
We've tried. It's
hard. Jim, great to see you, man. Great reading your stuff. You guys are both killing it, man. And Puck, let me say something here because I think you're a little modest. As you're talking about people using the QR code and signing on to support what you're doing, can I just bang the drum just a little bit here and explain why it's important? Like, if you enjoy this show, if you want to support a journalist who is covering the stuff you care about, if you want to allow Puck to continue to do what he's doing, follow him, use that QR code, support him, share this podcast and this video cast with others, and tell friends about it. That's the best thing that you can do as a community. And as we have found, like, content always wins, and Puck's got it. So Puck, I know that you are, what do you call the insider group? What is it called?
The Puck's Posse.
Puck's Posse. Join the Posse. Support what he's doing. I mean, he's covering the stuff you care about if you're watching this. So get on board. There you go.
You're so kind. You know what? You're so kind. You didn't have to say that, but thank you very much.
And I like Jim's fixing his camera.
Yeah. Well, he's getting.
I agree with everything you've said right there, John, except for the camera angle stuff. Because I'm still struggling with that. And if I move it around, is that better if I do it like that?
I like that because I feel like otherwise I feel like I'm 10 and I'm asking you. Can you give me 50 cents for a popsicle?
Yeah.
There you go. I'm looking up at you.
Now I got to just hold this.
Don't screw around with it. Don't.
Okay.
He's fine.
Last time he did this before we started, then it knocked his whole headset out and it just.
Do it later, Jim.
Look up.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing, John, you called him a journalist. I'm not so sure.
Yeah,
about that.
not a journalist. No, there's nothing Yeah, I'm with you, Jim. There's nothing journalist about me. Hey, where do you want it? Let's start first with Jimmy Rogers, and then I want to get to Jake Dickert and the Board of Regents and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's been so much that has happened since last I talked to you. What do you make of the Jimmy Rogers hire?
I like it.
First reaction.
I like it. Rapid reaction. I like it. I talked to Ann McQuay, probably a couple times throughout the process, and I was a little worried that Washington State was going to drag its feet. You saw, and we'll get to this presidential stuff. We know there's no alignment right now between regents, university president, athletic director. You're trying to make a hire that brings a football coach into that fold. How do you do that when you don't have that other alignment? So I had a concern that this would take some time, that they wouldn't have Kirk Schulz, the president, on board with what they wanted to do as an athletic department, that the regents, were having a back channel around him. So I had some real concerns that this would take extra time, and you can't afford to do that with the portal open and players getting 30 days. The Washington State players have 30 days to get into the portal once it opens. And so there's an extended window for Washington State players. So I think it's really important that they move fast, right? Move fast, get it right. I think they did both things. I mean, Jimmy Rogers has got proof of performance. He knows how to win in a smaller setting, make it feel bigger than it is. I like that he isn't a guy who went to Nebraska or Florida that you're going to have to worry about him bolting to his alma mater after. He's coming to you after playing at his alma mater, right? And coaching at his alma mater. So I like this for a number of reasons. It sort of rhymes with the Curt Cignetti hire too at Indiana. They get him from James Madison. He brings 13 players with him. I think we're going to see not just the coaching staff from South Dakota. We're going to see players who come through the portal to Washington State. So I think it solves a number of problems. Ann McCoy said to me, relentless energy, great learner. He's got success. I mean, you look at his record, not unlike Kalen DeBoer. He's just 1-1 where he's been. So I like it. And I'll be curious to see if they can have the same kind of balancing, sort of stabilizing success that Cignetti had at Indiana, bringing a bunch of players from James Madison.
Hey, John, the salary surprised me. And maybe you're going to tell me that it shouldn't because we're on a smaller stage, so to speak now, but 1.5 million after Jake was making 2.5, was that a surprise?
A little bit, but I think, if you're Washington State, if you can get him at 1.5, you get him now knowing that you're going to have to boost him if he has that kind of success that you expect. The question for me is, are you going to take that money and reinvest it into football? Because, we'll get to this, but the Regents have given the football program and the athletic department $2 million of extra funding, right? From that they didn't plan on having before. With the basketball move where you lose Kyle Smith, he's making 1.3 and you replace him with a coach making 600,000. They just, the university took the savings on that. I'd like to see the athletic department take that money that they had earmarked for Jake Dickert and say, okay, we're going to reinvest that into football. It creates some revenue sharing opportunities. So you're seeing coaches across the country take some pay cuts. Florida State, Norvell took a pay cut. Gundy took a pay cut at Oklahoma State. And you're seeing that money then being reallocated into revenue sharing. So will Washington State now have, $2 or $3 million that it didn't have before to go out and help with the Cougar collective and saying, hey, we can share some revenue? That's the question I have for Ann McCoy in the athletic department.
Yeah, it's, you bring it up, Jim, and that was the first thing I thought of was the salary was, did she offer that job to Vegan at Montana State? Did she offer the job to Jim Moore, let's say at UConn, or they found out what the salary was going to be and they're like, yeah, we're out on that one? I think it's fair to ask, and none of us will truly know other than her. Was Rogers always the guy? And if he was always the guy, she did a great job of not letting anyone know he was the guy, because he really was not rumored at all up until maybe the last 24 hours or so that you started to hear, well, maybe this Jimmy Rogers guy's out there. It was always Vegan. It was Mora. You heard Neuheisel's name out there. You heard all these other names. But then I think it is fair to ask, though, if they went that route just because of kind of what Jim said, it was more cost effective. Because, look at the basketball thing. I don't know if they wanted the Montana State coach. He allegedly turned him down unless it was never really offered to him. And they went with Riley, and Riley's only making $600,000.
I think, too, I am being told it was Vegan and Rogers, that there weren't others that were seriously top line, contenders for this job. So it's clear that they were kind of moving in the direction of going, hey, we're going to bring an FCS guy in. We know we can pay him less, but we're also bringing in a guy who's going to bring some talent with him. Indiana had 31 new players that they got in the portal. That's the job now. You've got to, I don't know how many are they up to losing? 27, 28, 30?
30. They're in the Cougs. I think they're like 32.
Yeah. So you got to replace that divot, right? And so the way you do that is you get an FCS coach who's going to bring a bunch of guys with him that are top of his roster. And as Cam Scadaboo and others have proven, those guys can play. So I don't know. You can get caught up quibbling in it, but if I'm the coach at any FCS school and they're offering me $1.5 million, that's a pretty good step up in pay, like for anybody on that level. And, and I don't think that those are better jobs than the new World Pac-12 in 2026 and beyond. So I think Rogers, sometimes it's a blessing when you find a candidate nobody else is talking about. I think he's a good hire. I think if I'm him, I think I can come into this conference. And if Washington State, here's the question, if Washington State gets a president and a board of regents that are in alignment, I think you have some advantages that some of those new World Pac-12 schools don't have.
John, you were the only one in our area in the Northwest that had an interview with Jake Dickert after he left for Wake Forest. What'd you take away from that? I still can't get past that photo that he tweeted out from the airplane and the family and that whole thing. Like, who's that tone deaf that they would do that when he did it? But anyway, I'm still bitter, John.
He's like a college kid who's looking forward, not looking back, right? I mean, and he's not thinking about that. But I'll tell you this, like it mattered to him what Washington State fans thought of him. And as I was talking to him saying, hey, look, I'll offer you the platform. You want to do this interview. Do you care? He absolutely cared what people thought about him. There was also much more to the story, and he was touching all around it in the interview. And it's really what sparked me to say, hey, wait a minute, is this a presidential issue? Is this a Board of Regents issue? Because he was poking at the idea constantly that he could not compete, that the resources weren't there, that there was some friction with he and Kirk Schulz, the president at Washington State. And as I dove into that, I found out they had this big meeting and it didn't go the way Dickert wanted it to go. And so I think Jake Dickert was demoralized. I think he was just looking at the portal. If John Mateer's leaving, he's losing a bunch of players. He's having to start over with his coordinators. And oh, by the way, his salary pool for his assistant coaches, which was at $4.9 million 2 years ago, was dropping to 3.5 this year. So he wasn't going to be able to replace his coordinators with guys he wanted. And then he had Wake Forest sitting off to the side going, hey, we'll give you a bigger pool. We're not going to give you a salary cut. And I am also told that Washington State, while they offered him this lifetime deal, it was a 6-year deal that had rolling 1-year extensions. The salary was flat. There were no raises at any point of that. And so Dickert kind of looked at that and said, gosh, why would I sign that? Why wouldn't I just stay on my current deal? So it really wasn't an offer that he was willing to jump in on. And now we find out later Ann McCoy had $2 million she didn't know about that her university president kept from her. But, I think that the Dickert interview, he wanted to speak to the people that were seeing him as disloyal and say, hey, look, I can still preach loyalty while also doing what's best for my family in the end. I think he wanted to stay. And I think the dirty little secret is, I think if John Mateer stays, I think Jake Dickert probably stays and just endures because he knew that he could compete with him. But he was facing starting all the way over with fewer resources. And in some weird way, maybe it's a blessing that he's out. And, you get Jimmy Rogers in there. There's more money, potentially, more flexibility. Maybe Washington State in the end ends up better off for it. But I'll just say this. I think Jake Dickert cared. I don't think he would have done the interview. He had no reason. He had no, there was no loyalty to me. But I think he cared that Washington State fans heard him say, hey, I had a good time here. I did everything I thought I could. But I left that interview thinking there were tremendous distractions in the last month of the season. Dickert was being told he couldn't retain his assistants. He had, 15 players getting recruited by other schools. He was losing his coordinators, and he wasn't going to be able to pay his new coordinators as much. And they were 7-1, 8-1 when all this was going on. And, how do you win? It's hard enough to win, but how do you win with that kind of pressure coming from within your own university?
Okay, I want to go to your reporting, right, that you did. I think this came out on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
Christmas Eve, yeah.
Yeah,
Christmas Eve.
About the money. How does the athletic department and the Board of Regents directed and told Kirk Schulz, the outgoing president, you have $2 million that we are earmarking towards specifically the football program? He has that information, but then now he keeps that from Ann McCoy for 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Do we still don't know why? He hasn't
I have
spoken
theories. I have
publicly
theories on
about this, but you even said $2 million is almost, and with some matching funds, it could be $4 million.
Yeah. Could have been $6. Could have been as much as $6 million.
How is that not an immediate removal from office offense?
Well, part of the issue, if you step back, is Kirk Schulz has negotiated that he's leaving in the summer, right? He's staying through the end of the year. He's a lame duck. Now, most lame ducks would just spend like a drunken sailor. Like they would just, hey, do it. The next guy will have to figure out how to make it work, right? But there was something about what Kirk Schulz is doing right now that really is raising a lot of eyebrows with the regents and with the athletic department. And now that I've seen what's going on, I really was trying to drill down on why. And I communicated with Schulz, and he essentially threw himself under the bus. And so it was really interesting to me to kind of see a president say, hey, I'm going to be the president that right sizes the athletic department. And I think Kirk Schulz is really concerned about his legacy in the perception that he was a athletics first university president who let football run the ship. He got a lot of criticism and continues to get criticism on that campus from the academics who say, hey, you're not funding the College of Business. You're not funding, the medical, arm of the school. You're not funding engineering. You're only interested in football. And so I think there's a legacy piece here for Kirk Schulz that's in play. I also think he didn't like that Jake Dickert specifically was circumventing his authority. Dickert went public on your show, my show, interviews. He often talked about the lack of resources, how his roster was getting poached. It was a constant sort of theme for Dickert. Now, that, I am told, annoyed Schulz to the point where Schulz was turning to staff members saying that he didn't like that Dickert was doing that, right? It's steaming the president that he's doing that because, hey, that ultimately comes back on the president. But the Board of Regents caught wind of Dickert's displeasure. Now, there was this meeting that happened, in early it happened right during the bye week, the second bye week. Washington State's 7-1. Kirk Schulz is going to meet with Jake Dickert during the bye week at Dickert's office. They get into the office. Dickert has this idea to kind of parade Schulz through the office, introduce him to the assistant coaches, the staff, and let him kind of see the faces of the people that are going to face, budget cuts and slashing their salaries. He wanted to humanize it. It wasn't a terrible move by Dickert. So Schulz gets marched around. He meets all these people. The meeting doesn't go well. He still tells Dickert, hey, I'm okay being the president that right-sizes athletics. You don't have any more money. At that point, Dickert, I think, went to the Board of Regents or got word to the Board of Regents saying, hey, I need more money or I'm going to lose my assistant. This thing's going to fall apart on me. And the Board of Regents then has this meeting in Seattle, and I wrote about this, but they have this meeting in Seattle over breakfast with Schulz in which they say, and this is how it works. The regents sort of dictate to the president what they want to be done, and it's the president's job then to carry that out. And if the president typically doesn't carry that out, he gets fired, gets removed. But Schulz only has, 6 months left on his deal. So he's leaving anyway. So the Board of Regents directs him to find $2 million and get it to athletics. They say, hey, also we'd like a $2 million match. Let's do a matching campaign and do it as a fundraiser with our gift givers on campus and our football supporters. And then they turned to the University Foundation and said, hey, another $2 million from you. That could be $6 million. Go find it. Now, Kirk Schulz told me this takes time. Now, he was told to get with his athletic director on this because, Ann McCoy, as she later told me, did not find out about this until the regents told her, not her own president. So Kirk Schulz didn't share that with the athletic director, and it really does become a point of contention. Now, I think, it's my opinion, I think he was annoyed at Dickert. I think he wanted to wait as long as he could. One of the regents told me, quote, Kirk dragged his feet. I think he dragged his feet knowing that the coaching staff was going to fall apart, knowing that Dickert would explore other options. I think it was kind of the equivalent of a code red from the president saying, how dare you circumvent me and go to the regents? Again, we come back to that congruency of vision, top down, alignment from the regents to the president, to the athletic director, to the football coach, did not exist at Washington State. You cannot be successful in that dynamic. And so, I think Ann McCoy, the AD, had a right to be upset. She didn't know. She could have planned. She could have turned to Jake Dickert and said, hey, look, we've got an extra $2 million. It's coming. Schulz told me he eventually found it. Again, he was not the person who informed Ann McCoy. McCoy told me she found out in an email that I later obtained that came from the Board of Regents to the athletic director saying, hey, the $2 million. And McCoy's response was essentially $2 million. Like, she didn't know about it. I think that, to me, is unforgivable. And I think if the regents were not so consumed right now with hiring Schulz's successor, I think they already would have moved to remove him. I think they're getting some of that pressure. But, they are in the final round of interviews for the new president, and they are talking about hiring somebody who really is in alignment with what they want.
Well, what's the status of the money now?
She has the $2 million. She has the extra.
She has it now, though.
So she has a $2 million plus whatever she saved on that head coaching salary and the coaching staff assistant pool. And I kind of wonder, we're all these schools are going into revenue sharing. The New World Pac-12 is going to be no different. I wonder if that money is going to be earmarked for revenue sharing with athletes.
It's a wild story. Go read it, johncanzano.com. Also in that story that he had to be he being Kirk Schulz had to be talked into joining the lawsuit against the departing schools, which again, that was new information. We all just assumed that he was just spearheading the charge to sue those other schools. Fantastic. Hey, you gave us a praise earlier. We'll give you a praise. That was fantastic, fantastic reporting on all of that. Great job with Jake Dickert. Great job with that information with Ann McCoy and the Board of Regents and the president. It was
you need the alignment. You have to have alignment. If you don't have it, you're host. And very unusual to see the trustees of the Regents talking, and multiple Regents talk to me. So it just tells me they are fed up with Kirk Schulz.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they probably have every right to be fed up. Hey, I want to get to the games here in just a quick second. Let me ask you a question, because this was I think a fascinating window on how people view not the transfer portal, but NIL and commitment and commitment to team. I don't know what happened with Miami in their bowl game, and I was initially surprised that Cam Ward was playing in the bowl game anyways. I'm like, oh, he's playing in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Okay. Well, hey, good for Cam. I mean, that's a nice commitment to the team. And then I'm watching I'm paying half attention to it. And I'm watching a little bit of the first half, and he's just on fire, right? He's killing it. I'm like, damn, he's really going off. And then you flip on the second half, and so he's out, and there's no reason given why he's not playing in the second half of the game. And then Mario Cristobal gives this weird answer afterwards about why he wasn't in there. No one knows if this was the plan or if this was Cam Ward just deciding on his own. And we can all just draw our own conclusion that he didn't want to play in the second half because, hey, I'm going to give you one half. I'm not going to play in the second half because I don't want to risk injury because I'm going to the NFL draft. I would just ask him, well, then why play at all? If you're scared about getting hurt, why should you play at all? And then there's people on both sides going, I don't care if he played one snap or the entire game or half the game. This doesn't affect his draft status at all. So there's both sides arguing against each other. I would just ask you this. If he's because they're professional athletes now, because he's being paid. He was paid by Miami's collective to play at Miami. Is he not under contract to play the entire season? You couldn't pull that stunt in the NFL. You couldn't say, hey, I'm under contract, but I'm not going to play the second half without being fined, John.
Yeah, it was selfish, right? I mean, forget what side of the argument you're on. It's selfish. Cam Ward acted in his own self-interest. He wanted that record. I don't think it was at all about helping his team win the game. He wanted the record, and that was it. And then he wanted to make sure he didn't get hurt. And he probably has an agent telling him that, hey, if the legacy thing matters to you, play the first half, get the TD passes. Now, I kind of wonder from Miami's standpoint, if I would have changed the way I called the plays, knowing he wasn't going to play in the second half, maybe run the ball in a touchdown situation instead of throwing the ball. I don't know. But Mario Cristobal's comments after the game, that's where I went. I went immediately to that post-game news conference because I know Cristobal. This is not sitting well with him down deep. Like, he is not on board with the selfishness of college athletics. He's participating in it like everybody else and tolerating it like everybody else. But these coaches don't like it. They don't love what's going on, and they'll tell you that they don't love what's going on. And in his comment after was, there are a lot of discussions that we have between players and coaches that are private. I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, he didn't support Cam Ward's decision. He just said, it was talked about before the game, essentially. So, I think it becomes a part of what eventually will be collective bargaining. You have to have guardrails on the portal. You have to have a player contract that says you're under contract for these games.
Yes.
Don't get the money. You've got guys that are saying, during the season, we had a quarterback in UNLV who quit after a nice start to the season. It's off the rails. It's broken. People keep saying, well, it's just part of the zeitgeist of the era where people are selfish. No, this is off the rails. You can be selfish within the parameters of your team and still be a team player. You see it all the time. You see, athletes who want playing time and who want the ball, who find a way to make it work within the ecosystem of that locker room. But this is just a player who's saying, I don't give a rip about my team. I care more about my legacy, and I don't want to get hurt. So let me get my record. Let me get out of the game. So I think he deserves the criticism. It's selfish.
Yeah, Jim, it was.
Well, Miami lost the game. I can't imagine being one of his teammates thinking, what the hell, man? What the hell? You let us down.
And I'm just surprised by the reaction, aren't you guys? I'm surprised the reaction from like the Daniel Jeremiahs of the world. This shouldn't affect his draft status. Yes, it should. It absolutely should affect his draft status. You're going to commit millions of dollars and a high draft pick on him, who's willing to sit out and not play a second half with his teammates, and as John points out, just wanted to play to set a record. That speaks volumes to Cam Ward's character, does it not?
I think it goes in his file. That's Mike Leach used to say that. Like your handshake goes in your file. A bad handshake. This is if I'm a NFL team, I'm looking at Cam Ward and I'm going, okay, like push comes to shove, this guy ultimately will do what's best for himself. Now, it may not keep somebody from drafting him, but it's going to be talked about. They talk about everything. You guys know, Jim, the scouts will reach out to you and be like, what does this guy like to interview? What does he like to talk with?
Right.
And I had a scout ask me about Justin Herbert. Is he really that quiet, prior to the draft? I'm like, he's going to be fine. Like, draft him. He's a great player. But it'll go in as Cam Ward's file. And it's another one of these things where, the performance of Colorado against BYU in the bowl game, it was all about, hey, this is going to be our class party on the Friday before, vacation. It just had no alacrity to it. There's no focus to it. And I think everybody knows it's broken. And everybody knows what it's going to take to get it back on the rails. It's going to take intervention from Congress. It's going to take some antitrust threats from Congress where the conferences then have to say, all right, you have to unionize. We need to negotiate with you. We'll negotiate the portal. Okay. You only get one portal window. You can only transfer once every 2 years, but here's the contract, and I think it's going to take some of that, but it's going to be really obnoxious for a couple of years here.
John, there's so many things I don't like about college football anymore, but I'm going to continue to watch it. And I just want to point out the feel-good story Friday night in San Diego at the Holiday Bowl. I mean, there were so many of us Cougs. I can't remember a loss that we've had in my 50 years of watching Cougar football that I felt better about. It was just, seeing kids. Puck and I talked about the possibility of them forfeiting the game might be a good idea, pull a Marshall like they did. But in hindsight, I was wrong about that. It was just, I watched the game with my kids and we were so excited. The block punt and what Zevi Eckhouse was doing. It was fun to see them all come together for an effort like that.
Yeah, you knew what they were up against, right? And I think that was a big part of it. And there's so many quitters out there. And I love what you wrote, Jim, on your site, in your column saying it was just the best loss ever. Like, it's a great point because you could leave that game as a Washington State fan, feeling good about the performance, feeling good that those kids, won the first quarter and didn't roll over in a game that, you're watching the bowl season, a lot of teams rolling over, guys quitting at halftime. I thought Washington State represented itself well, which is what you want in a bowl game. They had to show up. The Pac-12 needs the money. Let's face it. So they play that game. And I think the kids that were out there playing, I'll be honest, like I was looking at some of those defensive players going, that guy probably isn't anywhere near the field in a Division I big time football game, but there were guys out there playing as hard as they could, and that's all you can ask for.
We had one kid, I had never heard of him before, that came off the bench and played D tackle. He was 245 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I just echo what Jim said. It was, yes, they lost.
Hey, we covered though.
Yeah, but you didn't cover in your lock of the week, your underdog of the week.
Oh,
though.
Come on. At
you
kickoff, it was 18.5.
You didn't cover what you said on the air, though. You said 17.
I hate that. I hate when that happens.
It was 17. I tied.
Yeah, 17. Well, that's a loss. Well, that's a tie. Yeah, you didn't win.
Whatever.
Yeah, you didn't win. But the effort was great. It was wonderful. It was a great effort. I'll be curious. I don't know if he'll remain at Wazoo. Well, depends on what Jimmy Rogers decides to do, if he brings that quarterback with him. I mean, that quarterback that's at South Dakota State is like the number one transfer portal quarterback right now, so he may go somewhere else. But Zevi Eckhouse, whether it's at Wazoo or someplace else, made himself some money that night. He did. I mean, there is a program looking at him right now going, oh, God, I can make that work. I can give him some money, and he can come play quarterback. So the effort was was great, and for Kyle Williams was fantastic. Kyle Thornton afterwards was great, and I just came away, despite the loss, just happy how they performed. All right, the game's coming up. We got the first quarterfinal game will come up on New Year's Eve. You got Penn State and Boise State. What kind of shot do you give the Broncos in that game?
Everyone keeps pointing out Penn State has not allowed, a 100-yard rusher this season, but I think it's a little misleading. I went back and looked at their box scores, and Penn State, first of all, didn't face some of the best running backs even in the Big Ten because of the way the schedule unfolded. They also gave up 95 yards on 14 carries to Ohio State's starting running back, so it was pretty close. Oregon's 2 running backs rushed for 186 combined yards against Penn State. So Oregon was, runs 2 guys, and both backs had more than 80 yards. So it's not like Penn State is like this dominant defensive rushing team. I think statistically there's a little bit of a misnomer going on there. I think Ashton Genty is going to be fine in this game. I think he'll rush over 100 yards. I think Boise State will be in this game in the fourth quarter. I think that, there's a lot of Big Ten bias going on out there. People haven't seen this. I don't think Boise State's going to be afraid in this game. I think they'll go in there the same way they went in there against Oregon, and I think they'll play pretty much punch for punch. Now, I picked Penn State to win because I just think they're a little better, a little more well-rounded. But I think Boise State, this will be a one-score game, and I think Boise State will cover.
I would just say this. They had to win in overtime against, I don't think, a very good USC team. They had, and I know it was in L.A., but no home field advantage anyways. Boise State's defense is better than that. Yeah. All right, and they're a better overall team than USC, so I would.
Boise State is more physical than people give it credit for. The Boise State has got a defensive tackle that is a big-time player that those the other Power 4 schools would love to have. Offensive line is good. They pushed Oregon around a little bit, and Genty went for $190 on Oregon. Okay, and I think he'll have a nice game. I think Maddox, he's been terrific. 22 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Dirk Cutter's a great play caller. And, they've had a whole bunch of time. They're rested. I think Boise's in the game. And, I won't be surprised if that is an underdog upset. But I picked it like, Penn State by 6. I think it's going to be that kind of game. It'll be you'll be watching it in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
Yeah, don't we really need, those of us who pull for underdogs need Boise State and Arizona State to do well? Because the double-digit underdogs in the first round, it was almost like, well, geez, those guys, you could have just had a 4-team playoff again.
Yeah. But I would remind you, though, like I looked at it. If you had a 4-team playoff, you would only have Oregon, Penn State, Texas, and Georgia in the playoff. They were the top 4 ranked teams in that final ranking. You just have rematches of those conference title games. It would be boring. Well, I love what we're getting here. Even, the NCAA tournament, we get blowouts in the first round, too, in that thing. And I think too much is being made of it. We need more sample size. But you're right, Jim. Boise State knocking out Penn State. Ooh, that would be fun.
Oregon, Ohio State. Some will call it the de facto national championship game rematch, obviously, of a game that was a great game earlier this season in Eugene. Buckeyes favored by 2.5. How does Oregon do it one more time against the Buckeyes?
I think, the question is it rested or rusted for Oregon? And we're going to know early. Like if 24 days off between games is too much time, we're going to find that out. Now, Oregon should be as healthy as they've been since the start of the season. I think Oregon's the better team. I think at Autzen Stadium, anybody who watched that game knows that, Oregon left some points on the field. Lanning did his typical Riverboat Dan go for it on 4th down in the red zone and didn't get it once. He gave away 3 points. I think he would take that 3 in a rematch. I also think, people who saw that first game, Ohio State turned the ball over on that first possession and it wasn't called. So I just think Oregon was about 7 to 8 points better than Ohio State the first time, but it ended up being a 1-point game. This is a neutral field. I like Oregon. I think the Ducks will be rested, not rusted. And I think that they have a lot to prove. I think it is very important that they are an underdog in this game. Dan Lanning has spent his whole season trying to manufacture a chip on the shoulder. I think Oregon will have it in this game.
Last thing for you, John. We head into 2025. There'll be so many changes again in college football. When does the Pac-12 add that 8th team?
I kind of have mid-March as the target date. Now, I went back and checked my notes this morning because somebody asked me that question, like who will be the 8th team? And something jumped out at me that I didn't notice before. I had an athletic director of one of the Pac-12 New World schools who told me that the goal was to build the best conference in the West. So I think UNLV, and I think, let's say maybe, let's set March 15th as the target date. But I think if the Pac-12 had its preference, it would like to stay regional. It would like to maybe just add UNLV. But then that adds, to me, a question about basketball, because that would give you 9 schools in basketball. The ADs all want 10. Do you add another member? Do you go after St. Mary's and say, hey, we'll bring in St. Mary's basketball only, just to keep St. Mary's and Gonzaga together? So I'm kind of looking at that. The TV and the media companies may decide differently. They may say, no, we want Memphis, we want Tulane, here's what we'll pay for it. Maybe that changes the calculus. But I think it's the same schools. I think it's UNLV, it's Memphis, it's Tulane, maybe St. Mary's in basketball. And then, everybody's telling me pump the brakes. There's some conversations going on right now about, the Pac-12 is talking about what sports they should sponsor. Should they be doing gymnastics? Should they be doing softball? They're having those kinds of conversations right now. But ultimately, everybody's saying that I'm talking with is saying mid-March was kind of the soft target to have all of this resolved. You may see the expansion bite come before the media rights bite, because the media partners are going to dictate that, right? They're going to say, hey, here's the schools we want to know you have them, especially if it's UNLV. There's going to be some legal entanglements that you have to unwind with the Mountain West there.
Thanks, John. Great emergency little visit with you. Of
course.
Have a happy New Year. We'll talk to you. You'll be more refreshed and even better in 2025.
Yeah, that's right. That's my resolution.
Yeah, to be better. All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you, Jim.
John.
There he is, John Canzano, with us every week, normally on Tuesdays, but because we're off tomorrow and Wednesday, he jumped on today. Go read all of his work, johncanzano.com. And again, it dropped during the holidays, but his piece on the Board of Regents, Jake Dickert, Kirk Schulz hiding $4 million from his athletic director. It came out on Christmas Eve. Go to johncanzano.com, subscribe to his website. It's just, he should be removed from office now. There should be zero debate. They literally should send the police in there and drag him out of his
Kicking
house.
And screaming.
Yes. Come on.
Yeah.
He lied and held money because he was upset at a head coach.
Okay, but in hindsight,
the head coach
what if Dickert had stayed if they'd gotten that money? Or are you happier with what we're doing now? I am.
I like Jake Dickert. So again, I'm not going to change
I like
my
him
opinion
too,
on him,
but
so.
You
don't like Jake Dickert after the fact, but before that, you liked him.
Correct.
Okay, so that nothing would have changed then.
I'd like to know more about the players supposedly not getting along with him and not respecting
you said
him.
that last week, but who are those players?
Well, I don't know, but I'd like to know more about that. Maybe I need to turn to johncanzano.com.
I don't know if there's
find
any
out.
players that again, I've seen two players, Kyle Williams and Liam Ryan. Liam Ryan wasn't recruited by him.
Yeah.
Carlos Hernandez apparently was like someone had something up on social media about maybe it was his mom said, he's not going to leave. He's loyal and he not like Jake Dickert. Carlos Hernandez in the transfer portal. Where do you think Carlos Hernandez is going to go to school when his wide receivers coach went to Wake Forest? He's going to go to Wake Forest. So clearly he likes him. Clearly the freshman quarterback likes him. There's another guy, a wide receiver out of Oregon or Idaho that he's taken. So I don't know. I just there's always going to be players that don't like the coach.
Okay.
Always going to be that.
Okay, fair enough. But I'm just ready to turn the page on that whole thing. What a fiasco. But John, just terrific reporting and right around the holidays, as you mentioned.
It was great reporting. And again, you did take the Cougs in 17.
I can't help it, but I like the Cougs.
I
like
get
the
about
Cougs at
10
17.
phone calls.
You said 17. I can't help
I
it.
pushed.
Okay.
That's not a loss.
I know, but it's not a win. You don't get 18.
Well, when I bet it was 18.5, so I don't care if I pushed on the podcast.
Yeah,
I
you
actually
don't care.
won.
I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
That's a push.
I suppose you had a winner for your dog of the week.
Did I have no, because we haven't played the game yet, because I have ASU plus 13.5.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like that, though. I like what John was saying about Boise State, too.
I don't know why you wouldn't give them a shot when USC had every chance to win that game against Penn State. And by the way, maybe he misspoke, but in that game, their running back went over 100 yards. He had 111 yards. Yeah. Against Penn State. I mean, they did outgain him by 100 yards, and Penn State, Aller was able to throw the ball on USC that day, but USC's defense is terrible. I mean, it's awful.
And the other thing that points toward Boise State, too, is that historically at the Fiesta Bowl is where they've done all their damage that they're known for. I mean, that was, the place where they beat Oklahoma. And the kid proposed to his girlfriend, that whole thing.
It's not like it's just like one game. But
yeah. Well, I mean, I when I'm betting, I just think about all that kind of stuff.
Still one of the greatest plays ever in the history of the bowl games.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. Nothing better than that. Hey, again, as I mentioned this before, we're going to get to the Ground Puck podcast here in just a quick second. We'll cut you loose because I know you're overtime. You'd like to get out of here as fast as you can so you move again.
No, I'd stay all day if you went all day.
Would you like to stay and talk to Tim and Curtis?
Not really.
Okay, I thought that.
Yeah.
The first edition of Dynamic Duos is out with Groz and Gas. Go check it out. Puck's Posse membership. Sign up there. You go to pucksports.com. It's just $5 a month, and you will get over an hour plus of these two telling stories. It was fun. I never knew. You're going to be stunned who gave him the idea for voicemails. First time I've ever heard it. I've ever heard the story. Who gave them the idea for voicemails? They talk about their career together, their chemistry, and then and I'm going to play this clip for you. Just what their legacy they wanted to be remembered for. Like looking back on their careers, what are they most proud of?
Proud that we went in and we tried to find the humor within reason of any situation. There's days when somebody gets fired or somebody gets traded, and maybe you can't tell a lot of jokes, but for the most part, we always tried to look at it that way.
It's special to be in radio, and don't forget that, and take care of the guys, now that are coming up, because they'll learn how to take care of the guys when they got to turn around, and they're bringing guys up, and that's how you keep things like that going and flowing like that. And I really took a lot of pride in doing that. At least I try to do that, and trying to tell guys, this is really special business, and if you keep the right way on it, you stay positive on it, you have fun with it. I mean, it can really be. It's beyond it. It's the greatest career imaginable, because you're having a good time every day, doing what you want to do every day.
And again, it's up there right now. Go to pucksports.com, sign up, become a Puck's Posse member. You get VIP content, including the first edition of Dynamic Duos with Groz and Gas. Audio only for that one, hour and 15 minutes plus. Again, they talk about how they wound up in Seattle together. I didn't know that how. Well, I knew part of the story, but I didn't know what they did. They did a rehearsal show down in Phoenix. The surprising person that gave them the idea for voicemails, and they just tell great stories. It just, you sit back and just kind of laugh listening to those two. And then you were such a huge part of that show. That's where I remember. Well, I mean, I read your work, but the best segment of the week is when you would come on with them once a week.
What? No, it wasn't.
It was unbelievable, because it's the same stuff you do now. Your dog, who was the dog back then? Was that Willie?
God, probably Willie. Yeah, it might have been Murph. Yeah, it was a while
I think it was
ago.
Willie, and you're chasing after Willie. Usually the phone would fall. You'd be somewhere in a park, distracted like you are now. It's the same. It's like how you were then is the same as you are now. Their dogs barked at the beginning of the show today.
I used to get the call from Freight Train, hey, Jim, you ready to go? And I'd be like, yeah, not really, but here we go again. And I didn't realize that about sports radio, though, that people just kind of like offbeat stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I always came on thinking, well, when I covered the Sonics, I have a lot to offer, insight on the Sonics, but generally speaking, I'm just a guy that likes sports and point spreads and different things like that. But I'm glad you enjoyed that.
It's good. It's I listened back to it the other day, just the whole show. It's just fun. It's fun because of those two just telling great stories and laughing at each other, making fun of each other. It was like listening to their radio show again. And it was just great.
Well, plus, I'm gonna before you cut me off here. I'm gonna echo what Canzano said. I mean, it's really important to you to offer the VIP, the Puck's Posse members, extra stuff, and you go out of your way to do that. The dynamic duos being one of a case in point, and everything else you're doing. The NFL draft coming up, the Mariners off-season roundtable with those guys. So I hope everybody sees the value in what you're doing and signs up for it, because, and I have. I mean, I should have asked it for it for free, but I'm paying your ass. So, what the hell? $5 a month, I can afford that. Especially in January. I'm not going to drink in January.
Oh, you're doing a dry January.
I'm doing a dry January.
One of those people.
I've done a dry February. That was 28 days, but I'm going to try 31 this time.
Stop it. Why do you do this to yourself? Just, take it easy.
Because I need to cut back a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. All right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of cutting back, we cut back right now.
Okay.
You've went over your time. 6 minutes over. We'll pay you in overtime. We won't see you on Wednesday. We'll talk to you on Friday.
Okay. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jim Moore. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
There he is, Jim Moore. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, brought to you by A Clean Streak. All right, we've got to pivot. We pivot now to the Ground Puck Seahawks podcast as we talk to our two favorite guys who cover the Seahawks. And they cover everything. They cover all sports. Tim Booth, Seattle Times. Curtis Crabtree, Fox 13. The tree is still up, damn it, because it's going to be up all year long. Boys, how are we? Happy almost New Year and a post-Merry Christmas to both of you.
Merry Christmas to you as well, Puck. Can we get odds on Jim actually surviving all of January without drink? By the way, it would have been nice for him to stick around, so we could have said, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to him. But clearly, he's got other things to go do than hang around for another 30 seconds. So
he doesn't like people, Tim. I don't know what to tell you.
But I am actually interested. Can we get some action on whether he actually survives? That's the 30 days, 31 days.
Okay, good. I will do it. I'm gonna put it out on social media. Can Jim make the full 30 days of going a dry January? And it's perfect segue, because this segment is brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. They don't want you to go a dry January. They would like you to go to the brewery now and find all their fabulous beers, including the new Tavern beer, a domestic lager that is a fantastic, easy drinking beer that you can find right now at Georgetown Brewery, available right now. If you like maybe an old school domestic lager that used to be brewed here years and years and years ago, that funny little commercials and all that, well, this one's like that, but better. And it's actually made here, and it's brewed here, not brewed in California. Tavern beer, go check it out. And then also you got Manny's, you got Rogers, Lucille, all the great beers there at GeorgetownBeer.com is the website. Well, hey, Curtis, they're eliminated, and now we've got weeks to sit there and ask the question, what happened? They don't have anybody but themselves, right, to blame why they're going to be on the outside looking into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's the Giants game. That's why. I mean, end of the day, that's why they're not going to be in the playoffs, is because you lose to one of the worst teams in the NFL early in the season, where Tyrone Tracy runs for whatever the heck he ran for you against you in that game. That was one of the major reasons why they're not going to keep playing into January at this point in time. And I mean, there's been, there's other games in there too. I mean, they shouldn't have gotten the layup that they did against Miami with Skylar Thompson starting that game. You get a benefit of the doubt there. But yeah, to lose that game to the Giants, and just how bad that team is overall during that stretch of games where they just couldn't stop anybody defensively, that kind of led to them making the changes they did at the linebacker and all of those sorts of the way the team evolved the rest of the season, got to the point where, yeah, now they're, percentage points out of being able to still be in it into the final week of the season. And I am just personally glad that we don't have to worry about 12 games next week that are some massive parlay there to try to keep things going. But I'm glad it ended last night and we don't have to worry about.
I'll be honest with you. I was so damn confused. I'm texting Tim like left and right, like, what is it again? Who do we need? Who needs to win? I was just like, I just wanted someone smarter than me, Curtis, and that was Tim. Just tell me what we need, because I couldn't keep track of what was going on.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, the way the NFL published it was the 3.5 wins by these 6 teams this weekend.
Yeah.
But it didn't specify in that thing that, oh yeah, there's also the dozen games or whatever there's going to be next weekend that are going to have to play into it as well. But yeah, so it was once Arizona had that ball picked off in the end zone on Saturday night, you're basically drawing dead at that point.
Tim, thank you for your service.
I'm glad I could provide something to help out this fine podcast and your own mental health. Sitting back watching football this weekend.
It was just, I mean, God, like I couldn't keep track of it. I just was like, I kept asking myself, who do I need to root for again? But yeah, they let themselves get to that point. You know,
exactly,
and you didn't do.
Yeah, and you didn't have the thing that ended up killing them when it came to, this crazy, math equation to determine whether they were going to stay alive. You didn't have the marquee win. You lacked that victory during the season against a team that ended up having 10, 11, 12 wins that was going to be able to keep you in contention with the Rams, because they had a couple of those and you didn't. We've talked about throughout the season. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat, but those were all crap teams for the most part, with the exception of the Giants, the one team that they should have beat that they didn't. And that's what led to the Rams having such a huge advantage and strength of victory. Was they had a couple of wins over teams that have double-digit victories that are going to be in the playoffs, and Seattle didn't. And that's what ended up killing them when it came to all this math that we had to do to figure out what exactly was going to happen.
Yeah, when you look at when they were matched up against teams that we would consider right now Super Bowl contending teams, right? I mean, 3 of those 4 games they've lost by double digits. Detroit game was closer than the final score indicated, but they're blown out by Buffalo. They're annihilated by Green Bay, but the Minnesota game certainly was close and certainly winnable for them. But I think that those 4 games, and then 3 of those 4 games, the result of them showed the discrepancy between where they're at now and where they need to get to actually be like a title contender, to make some noise in the NFC. Yeah,
I mean, we talked about it, 2 weeks ago heading into that Vikings game, that they needed the Vikings game for the strength of victory aspect of it. Like, if you were going to win one of those 2 games, it needed to be that one. And I don't know what the scenario would have been if that meant that they had the tiebreaker in hand at this point going into this week, or if they still needed help. I don't know precisely what it was, but you would have had much more of a chance at the very, very least. That being said, I don't think the Seahawks are that great. I don't think the Rams are very good. That team isn't any good either. Like, there's not, 7, I think, contending teams in the NFC as it is right now. You've got your handful that are going to be there, and I mean, yeah, the Seahawks aren't in that tier. So you've got to find your way to get to that tier. And there's a lot of decisions this team is going to have to make this offseason that are going to make it fairly intriguing in some ways, and trying to chart the best path forward and thread a needle here, because I think there are some difficult ways to try to come up with solutions for what they have coming down the line. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for sure. But yeah, I don't think they can blame anybody but themselves for the situation where they're at. It's a matter of expectations for the season, how you're going to ultimately end up viewing this year, because it could very well end up being a double-digit winning season for a rookie head coach in his first season. And there's a lot of ways you can look at that and say that's a very, very nice season. And then on the other hand, you can say, well, it was right there for them to get into the playoffs and they're not going to, so they fell short, and that's a disappointment. So it's all a matter of what you thought the team could do this year, your expectations for them, how good you think they actually are when you look at their roster, and how you want to kind of review that and marry that thought in your head as to what the season's going to ultimately be.
Well, let's go there then. Answer this, Tim, and then Curtis, you can answer afterwards. Is it regardless what happens, or do they need to get that extra win? Now it's going to be an asterisk, because I don't know if the Rams are going to play anybody, because they don't need to. Is it already, Tim, a successful season?
That's a great question. I think you have to look at it as being marginally successful no matter what. You have a new coach, you have an entirely new staff, you have coordinators that have never been coordinators at the NFL level. There could have been a lot more growing pains with this season than what ended up happening. I think you take a lot of hope based around the way the defense changed at midseason and what you saw the latter half of the year from that group and the potential of maybe what that could be moving into next season with if that's how they want to move ahead with that unit mostly intact. So I think in the broad sense of everything that goes into having as significant a change as they had last offseason with, changing your head coach and changing almost all of your coaches, and having a little bit of roster turnover within that finishing above 500 should be considered a marginally successful season. The trade-off is you should be playing in week 18 for a playoff spot. And that is something that's going to be, it could linger. It's the kind of thing that, this group, if they don't get back to this point, if they take a step back next year, whatever, you're going to look at it and say, man, think about how much further along this group could have been if they find a way to get into the playoffs in year one. Maybe that accelerates the timeline of when they get back to being a true contender in the NFC. So I think it's kind of like, you got to be, if you're grading the season, you got to be, you're going to finish above 500. You're going to pass the class, but it could have been a lot more if you don't kick the Giants game or you find a way to beat the Vikings and you're playing for something really significant in week 18 and the potential to go to the postseason.
Curtis?
Yeah, I mean, I ultimately think it's probably a successful season when all's said and done. I think by the end of next week, like I said, I don't think the Rams are very good. I think they're going to win the game next weekend and get to 10 wins. To get to that number in your first season with a brand new coaching staff across the board, I think there is reason to think that that's a successful season. And look, whether they backdoor into the playoffs as the division winner here and, with the worst record in the conference, or I think that they would end up being worst record in the conference at that point, or, miss it by a hair. I don't know that it fundamentally is all that different at the end of the day, because there's still not that next tier up you need to get to be a real contender in the conference to make a deep run or anything. But yeah, I think it would be a moderately successful season for them at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess it's important if they get the 10th win, right? And you start looking at the new hires this year, and I'm going to go off the top of my head. You got McDonald, you got Quinn in Washington, you got Raheem Morris in Atlanta. Who else am I missing? There was like three. There was those three for sure. Like, look at Washington as we think of the other teams that maybe had new hires this year. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Dan Quinn. They may finish with one more win, but let's say they go 11-6. So, and Seattle wins, you have a game difference. I would go look at the schedule for Washington, and I would ask, who did they beat? Their one quality win again is a 3-point win against Philadelphia. Other than that, I mean, they didn't beat anybody. They lost to
they had the Bears in that Hail Mary game go their way when the dude decided to stop playing on the final play and caught the fans and everything.
They lost to a bad Cowboys team. So again, it's who you play, when you play them, the time you play them, a lot of it. But I think people will look at Washington and go, "Oh, that's such a massively more successful season than what Seattle had." I mean, they also had then a dynamic quarterback and all that with Jaden Daniels, and then I guess if you look at Atlanta, and they're not in yet. They've got to win next week, right? So they're 8-8. With what they've put together. Now they've made the transition now to go to Michael Penix, over Kirk Cousins. I think you got to sit back and you got to ask a question when the season started, back in September. What did you think they were going to finish? Because if you thought back then, hey, a 500 record, 9-8, 10-7 was successful, then I don't know how you can now change your mind now. Because that to me was 10-7 is what I thought before the season started. You get to 10 wins or even 9-8, I'm going to call it a successful season. So I'm not going to back off of it. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect at all. Maybe others don't gauge Vegas the way that I gauge it, but their win total was 7.5. I thought their defense got better. No doubt about that one. They looks like they finally settled on their linebackers, which was going to be a big question mark going in to the season. Offensively, I thought there were some times, God, they looked really good. The passing game looked good. They inconsistent as hell with that running game. And again, the offensive line continues to be, the biggest Achilles heel for them, which we can get into it later, leads to some other issues. But I think as a whole, it was a successful season. Now, again, I think others are going to disagree with that and say, no, playoffs was the ultimate goal. But I don't know. 10-6, if they get that extra win, I'm going to look at 10-7, the first year of a guy who they made sweeping changes to their football program. Sweeping changes. I mean, new guys everywhere. New head coach, never done it before. Coordinator, never been in the NFL. A defensive coordinator who'd never called plays in the NFL at that level. So I don't know. I don't think it's as doom and gloom as a lot of people want to point out.
And I think
I was going to say really quick, if you were going to revise your expectations, it would be off the fact that the 49ers ended up having all the injuries and made the division much more attainable. And to against the Rams team that, as I said a few minutes ago, that I don't think's that good either. And so, you had the opportunity was there for you to win the division, and because of mainly a Giants game back in October, 12 weeks ago or whatever it was, you're not going to get across that finish line.
It's a little bit like Pete's first year. That was a shit division. His first year. I mean, the Hawks won it at 7-9, but the opportunity was there. The door was open to walk through that door and get a division title in your first year. And then, you have one of the most iconic moments in franchise history that happens in the playoff game, that you end up getting to play at home against the defending Super Bowl champs. That's the missed opportunity here. It's not so much whether the season should be deemed black and white a success or not a success. There's layers to it, which I think you pointed out, Puck. Yeah, it probably should be viewed as a success as the whole, but it's that missed opportunity of, you never know what the hell is going to happen. No, they're not on the class of Minnesota or Detroit or Philadelphia or any of the other teams in the NFC, but it's the thing with the NCAA tournament that we all love. It's just get in the damn tournament and see what happens. It's why you see 10 seeds and the times we've had 8 and 9 seeds make the Final Four. It's this incredible experience for those, to watch those events happen. And it's the same thing with the NFL. You think and you should know what's going to happen based off of the hierarchy and the quality of the teams in the league. But every now and then you have a team that jumps up a 7 seed that makes a NFC championship game or a 4 seed that gets to the Super Bowl. That stuff happens before. So that's I think where fans are going to feel like there was this season. While they'll probably eventually look at it as a success, probably feel in the moment like it wasn't, because the door was open to do something potentially to get in and then see what happens with your opportunity in the postseason.
And no doubt, I think we would all agree, it's how the season started too probably changed everyone. I mean, they got off to this great start, and you're thinking, oh my God, they're better than we think. And then you got to just remember who they played and the circumstances of those games. A rookie quarterback making his very first NFL start, a bad Patriots team, and then a Dolphins team without Tua. They should have went 3-0.
Yep.
It would have been inexcusable for them not to go 3-0. All right, so as we now just get to kind of start on the offseason, because this game doesn't mean anything at the end of the year, other than the escalator clauses there in Gino's contract. Can you imagine, just for a second, I kind of want Jim Moore to win his bet and let Sam Howell start the game so he can win $250 off me. Can you imagine if the organization, Curtis, went to Gino and said, hey, we love what you did, but we want to see what Sam Howell can do against the Rams. We're going to sit you this week.
Yeah,
he's
I'm
leaving
sure he's going to
$6
love
million.
that conversation.
For those who don't know, he would be then leave. He's got $6 million on the table that he can earn coming up on Sunday. But we don't expect that to happen, right, Curtis?
I would not expect that to happen. No, I think that's a pretty bad message to send to the NFL player landscape if you do stuff like that. To a player who's, look, whatever your stance is on what Gino is as a quarterback, whether you think he's great, bad, whatever, he's led this team for 3 years admirably, done very good job leading his franchise. I think that would be a very short-sighted kind of play to do that. I understand fans wanting to see Sam Howell, I don't know that I need to see it off of what we've seen from training camp. And I think, I guess I don't understand that thought process in general, kind of playing the guy who can't win out the job in general at the end of the day. But I get fans' curiosity, but then I've also remembered the same conversation around Matt Hasselbeck and Charlie Whitehurst and fans wanting to see that and how bad that went when they finally got their wish. And I don't know that this would be that dissimilar if that was the case this time around.
Tim, I just want to see it because it'd be chaos and it'd be fun.
Yeah, but I think you'd lose a big portion of the locker room if you did that. Like, I mean, 100%. And Curtis brought up a good point there. Like, whatever their decision is and how they move forward at quarterback this offseason, because you're going to have to do something. Like, Gino's going to want a new deal. I think there's something to be said for the amount of respect Gino's gained in that locker room. And it reminds me a little bit of how respected Tavares Jackson was in the Seahawks locker room back in 11 and 12. And during that period of time, like, those guys respected the hell out of Tavares Jackson, and he played through a lot of injuries, a lot of bad offensive line. The amount of respect that I think Gino has in that locker room, in that building, is kind of on par with what Tavares was. And I don't think that should be discounted in any of this, is that, that guy's earned his the way he's viewed by the people in that building. And there is a chance that this is the last time we see him play for the Seahawks this Sunday. They have a lot of hard decisions that they have to make regarding that position and some other positions moving forward, knowing that Gino's got 1 year left on his deal, and he's openly going to want something new or something, some more security in the offseason. And they're going to have to decide whether he's the guy to move forward with. So, anyway, he's going to go out there. They're probably going to do their part to try and get him to those numbers and hit those escalators on Sunday.
And as they should, they should.
Yeah.
I want to just throw a New Year's gift to Jim Moore and let him win an actual bet, but there's no way that they should. He's earned the right to play in the game and play as long as he wants, because he's been a great leader. And you can hear how Mike McDonald talks about him anyways, and how much he loves him and how much he respects him. That has never even been a thought probably for Mike McDonald and the staff. All right. Next week, in the next couple of weeks, as we kind of wind it down, we'll do that. We're going to save the whole, like, what do they do with Ryan Grubb? What are they going to do with Geno Smith? What are they going to do with DK Metcalf? Let's save it. Let's table it for the next few weeks. Let's get through the season and all of that, and before we get into that conversation, because it's going to be a hell of an offseason. I'm going to be real interested. All those decisions that and topics that you guys have brought up, of what direction that they go in, because it's going to be pivotal moving forward. With their organization, how much money do they want to spend on certain guys, and is this Tyler Lockett's last game? I think I guess that's one thing that we can talk about now real quick. I mean, do you guys think it's his last game? Do you think he'll retire once the season's over?
Well, I don't know if he's going to retire, but I think it's probably his last game with the Seahawks. Yeah. Okay. I mean, just to kind of give an outlook here very briefly, cap numbers for next year: Geno Smith, $38.5 million. Tyler Lockett, $30.895 million. DK Metcalf, $31.875 million. Draymond Jones, $25.6 million. Uchenna Nwosu, $21.49 million. Noah Fant, $13.5 million. Those are massive numbers for each of those players that you have to figure out how they fit into your landscape moving forward. And I don't know that 5 of the 7 of those guys do, when all's said and done. When you're having to chart a path forward with the holes they need to fix on the roster, I don't know that you can do it with the guys on those contract numbers. Well, and then maybe Tyler comes back and says, I'll take a massive pay cut and you can keep me and we can find a way to do this, whatever the case may be. But particularly if you do make the decision to say trade DK this offseason, maybe you are able to find a way to do that. But there's some real decisions they're going to have to make as to what they're going to do moving forward.
Absolutely. Tyler Lockett's last game, Tim, you think, in a Seahawks uniform or just overall?
I think he has every intention of playing next year. So I think this is Bobby Wagner part 2. This is your cap number is a number that's not palatable moving forward. We can obviously see that his production has decreased, that JSN has obviously moved into being the 1A or 1B receiver for them with what he's done this season. You can't bring a guy back who's got 47 catches going into week 18 at a $30 million cap hit. That just doesn't work financially. The math doesn't add up in the NFL to do that. So if Tyler's willing to come back on a 1 year, I don't know, $8 million deal, $10 million deal, maybe you go down that road with him. But my assumption is that this is the last time we see Tyler in a Seahawks uniform on Sunday.
Okay. All right, we'll table all that stuff next week in the next couple of weeks as we wrap up the Seahawks season. Got one more game to go, taking on the Rams coming up this week. Boys, thank you very much. Happy New Year to you. We'll talk to you in 2025.
Thanks, Puck.
Happy New Year, Puck.
Yeah, you as well. There they are. Curtis Crabtree, Fox 13. Go read all of his work there, fox13.com. Tim Booth, Seattle Times. Visit seattletimes.com there for more information, not just on the Seahawks, but Tim does everything, covers a lot of hockey. He was up in Vancouver this week. That entire segment there with those boys, as we're doing it here for the last week, and we're doing it this week. We're posting everything all at once, by the way. So if you're watching this live, and you go back later to watch it, one full show up on YouTube. If you're going to listen to it, one full show up there on all the podcast platforms. So just letting you know we're doing that. We're just seeing how it went, and then we may go back to just separating everything up. But I just wanted to see how people enjoy just having the one big show, both on video and audio together. Also, just another reminder, our first edition Dynamic Duos. Quick recap. You're wondering what this is. Started it years ago back in radio during COVID. We had nothing to talk about. Came up with this idea of bringing two people together who are synonymous with one another in Seattle sports. It started with Marcus Johnson and Kevin Calabro, but then we had Bob Rondo and Chuck Nelson, great broadcasting partners. We had Steve Largent and Jim Zorn. The earliest connection, for Seahawks football. Matt Hasselbeck and Robbie Tobeck were just a great 1-2 punch back in the day for those teams. Sean Kemp and Gary Payton were guests. Ryan Leaf and Mike Price, going to the Rose Bowl in '97. So just to give you an idea, I always wanted to do it here on this platform as well. So our first edition of Dynamic Duos came out this morning at 10 o'clock. You can go to pucksports.com. At the top of pucksports.com will take you to the Puck Sports Patreon page. It is our Puck's Posse VIP membership page. You can also, if you're streaming this or watching this right now, watching the stream, you can go to the QR code. It will take you there as well. $5 a month. You're going to get all VIP content for Puck Sports, and in addition to get VIP content, exclusive access nobody else gets. In addition to that and the free stuff, you are also supporting Puck Sports. So I appreciate it. If you have any problems signing up, or, hey, I can't afford it, what have you, I get it. Totally understand. Send me an email, puck@pucksports.com, and we'll work something out for you. I want everybody to have access to it. So I don't want to, people are like, hey, it's time of year, money's tight. I get it. I totally understand. So just send me an email, puck@pucksports.com. But again, just $5 a month. Spent over an hour with these guys, Groz and Gas, how they came, the relationship with one another, their paths to Seattle, what led them there, the curious stories of how they got there, how they ended up working together, the behind-the-scenes look at their friendship, their chemistry. Did it happen right away? Who gave them the idea for voicemails? This I never knew, the story of it. And then just the state of Seattle sports right now, the state of media right now, sports radio, and just how we consume media is vastly different now than it was when those guys started. Great laughs, great storytelling. It literally is like sitting back and listening to their show once again. So go sign up today, become a VIP member Not only that, you get other VIP access throughout the 2025 year. Also, we every month we'll hand out a $100 prize package, $50 to John Howie Steak, $25 to Georgetown Brewery. When you go to Georgetown Brewery, try out their new tavern beer, and $25 to Flat Stick Pub. We've given away our first 2 gift cards, and we'll give away another one coming up soon in February for our February Puck's Posse member. So again, just by signing up for $5 a month, you have a chance your name gets thrown in the hopper to win a $100 prize package. All right, that's it for the self-promotion. Just give me a second to get that all out. Hey, What the Puck is brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. It's your restoration company that is going to let you avoid all the stress in your life of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online, restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. 2024 was no doubt the fastest and craziest year that I have ever been a part of. I left a job, obviously, as you know, that I loved, and I thought I would retire there and stay there for 10, 15 more years. Decided to move on, took a leap of faith to start my own media site. Scariest thing I've ever done, but also at the same time, the most exciting endeavor that I've ever done as well. The emotions of the past year have been like a roller coaster to me. There have been great days. There have been good days. But there's also been days that have brought doubt and uncertainty. But ultimately, as you take a step back, I know that I've made the right decision moving forward, because one of the reasons, well, the main reason why I know I've made the right decision is because of when I hear from you, the consumer, the viewer, the listener, whether if it's an email, whether it's comments in our chat that we have in our live stream every day, whether it's a tweet or, the occasional stranger stopping me out in public to say some nice things. Your kind words, your encouragement, your support, it means the world to me. I say it all the time, but it's 100% the truth. It just absolutely means the world to me. It always stops me in my tracks when someone says something nice, when I hear from one of you. And I've said this before, said this months ago when I left. All I ever want to do was entertain, try to make people laugh, try to bring a smile on someone's face. These past 8 months, it's been 8 months, have reaffirmed that desire to just continue to do it. And I want to continue to do it in 2025. I look forward to 2025. I look forward to continuing this journey together on Puck Sports with all of you out there. So I want to say thank you again. Have a wonderful and safe new year. We're going to see you back in 2025, bigger and better versions of the show. We'll be back on Thursday, but really look forward to more fun in 2025. We transition out of football, get into baseball. But as always, as we talk to you again on Thursday in 2025, love you all. And as always, promise to be better.
No, die, so.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah. I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!